Perhaps with a bit of luck, she might find a suitable widower, or the third son of a baron. The third son of a baron? Lady Ward sputtered. Surely she can do better than that. Unfortunately, Eleanor chose that precise moment to lose her balance and fall back into the curtains. With a muffled shriek, her feet flew up above her head, and she disappeared into the heavy drapes. Lady Ward smiled weakly at Mrs. Ascot. So sorry to have wasted your time. Let me see you out. Are they gone, Henny? Waiting until the sound of disappointed footsteps had faded away, Eleanor untangled herself from the curtains and carefully scooped Mrs. Hensworth, her beloved pet hedgehog, out of her pocket. She'd found the little insectivore. Contrary to popular belief, hedgehogs were not rodents. In the garden, stuck in the bottom of a pot. The victim of an attack from above, the little hedgehog had been missing a large chunk of her quills. After nursing her back to health, Eleanor had attempted to release her back into the garden. But Henny, having grown fond of warm milk and blueberry scones, had stubbornly refused to leave her pocket. She'd become Eleanor's first pet, but not the last. Unbeknownst to her parents, Eleanor had quite the menagerie living in the old garden shed behind their townhouse. Her beloved collection of orphaned animals, all of which required her daily attention, was one of the main reasons she'd just made an utter fool of herself in front of Mrs. Ascot. The last thing in the world she wanted was to be shipped off to some training academy for distinguished young women. Eleanor wasn't distinguished. She was happy. And she saw no reason why her entire life should have to change just because she was now a debutante. Debutante. How she hated that word. Up until 2 months ago, she'd only heard it a couple of times. Now it felt as though it were being thrown in her face every time she turned around. Debutantes do not slouch. Debutantes do not eat in the stables. Debutantes do not read during supper. Debutantes do not speak unless spoken to. Frustrated beyond all bearing, she demanded to know what a debutante could do, and she'd gotten a very unwelcome glimpse at the future that awaited her when her mother had promptly replied, "Marry well, Ellie. A debutante can marry well." Well, she didn't want to marry well. In fact, she didn't want to marry at all. What do you think, Henny? Lifting the hedgehog up to her face, she kissed the tip of Henny's twitchy nose. Do you think my life should be defined by a man? Because I don't. Men are useless, dim-witted clods who— Ellie! Lady Ward's shrill voice rang through the entire downstairs. With a heavy sigh, Eleanor slipped Henny back into her pocket and prepared herself to face the music. Or in this case, the disappointment of a loving mother who genuinely wanted the best for her daughter, but was going about it in a very convoluted way. "Yes, mother," she said when Lady Ward marched into the drawing-room and regarded her only daughter with an expression torn between affection and exasperation. A kind-faced woman with hair several shades darker and straighter than Eleanor's fiery red curls, Eleanor Ward had been regarded as a great beauty during her debut, and time had done little to detract from her loveliness. An opinionated daughter who refused to adhere to the rules of society, however, had begun to take a noticeable toll. There were more lines around the corners of her mouth than there had been 6 months ago. Lines from frowning when Eleanor said something particularly outlandish. Lines from wincing when she tripped over something. Lines from shouting out in surprise when a little hedgehog went scurrying across the hall. Lines from staying awake at night with her mouth pinched in a tight line of worry as she fretted over Eleanor's future prospects. For who would possibly want an outspoken girl who defied convention at every turn? A girl who would rather have her head in the stars than her feet planted firmly on the ground. A girl who had more pets than friends. She knew all about the garden shed, and who didn't know a waltz from a quadrille. I am sorry to say that Mrs. Ascot cannot offer her support at this time. With a loud, somewhat dramatic sigh, Lady Ward collapsed into the nearest chair and brought the back of her hand to her temple. She wanted me to extend her regrets and to let you know that she is simply too busy. Oh, she isn't busy, Eleanor rolled her eyes. She simply doesn't want her name attached to a complete and utter disaster. You're not a disaster, Lady Ward protested. Well, not a complete one anyways. Thank you. But I do wish you would try, Ellie, said Lady Ward, gazing up at her daughter beseechingly. I realise coordination is not your strong suit, but surely you can manage a simple waltz without doing yourself bodily harm.